Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're skipping the usual historical background and going straight into the torchlit caves of antiquity to look at what is, without a doubt, the most captivating unsolved mystery of the ancient world. You know about the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? Well, today, we are zeroing in on an absolute outlier in that famous collection.
So picture this. What if we had an ancient map, but it's not drawn on some fading, crumbling parchment? No, it's meticulously carved into sheets of actual metal, and it allegedly hides dozens of tons of buried gold and silver scattered all across the Judean desert. It sounds literally like the plot of a Hollywood adventure movie, but I promise you, this is a very real artifact, and it has completely baffled historians, linguists, and archaeologists for decades now. Now, what's truly mind-blowing here is the sheer contrast between the Copper Scroll and the rest of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, the standard scrolls, they're fragile, religious texts written on leather, parchment, or papyrus. You know, the kind famously stumbled upon by local Bedouins. But this scroll, it's entirely unique. It was hammered into copper, mixed with about 1% tin. And it's not some theological treatise. It's not a book of laws. It's not a prayer. It is a highly specific, singular inventory of unimaginable wealth. Let's track its modern journey. Archaeologists discovered this artifact back in 1952, resting quietly at the very back of Qumran Cave 3. But right out of the gate, there was a massive physical problem. Over the course of 2,000 years, the metal had completely converted into brittle, oxidized copper. If anyone tried to just unroll it, it would have literally shattered into dust. It was completely frozen in time. So, to save it, the scroll was carefully transported over to Manchester University. There, Professor H. Wright Baker engineered this delicate solution. Over 1955 and 1956, he painstakingly used a tiny saw to slice the twin rolls of copper into 23 curved strips. Finally, scholars could actually read the ancient text trapped inside. And when that decipherment was officially published in 1962, though it did leak a little bit earlier, it revealed an exact inventory. 64, that's the magic number. 64 distinct hiding spots detailed right there in the text, pointing to caches of gold, silver, aromatic spices, and even other lost manuscripts. Literally 64 locations holding a king's ransom just waiting to be uncovered. Put yourself in the shoes of the ancient author for a second, the person desperately hiding this loot. The entry that opens the scroll paints this incredibly vivid picture of a real money chest just waiting in the dark. It feels so tangible, doesn't it? If you close your eyes, you can almost see the stone steps, the eastern entrance, those imposing fortress walls casting long shadows out over the desert. But here's the crucial point. Almost every single entry throughout the text follows this highly specific, highly repetitive blueprint. Honestly, it reads less like epic literature and way more like an ancient spreadsheet. Step 1 gives you a general regional location to travel to. Step 2 gives you a hyper-specific local landmark, telling you exactly how many cubits to dig down into the earth. And Step 3, that tells you exactly what kind of treasure you're going to pull out of the ground once you hit the bottom of the hole. Now, to really grasp the true value of what's written on this metal, we have to understand the ancient measurements. When the scroll lists talents, or kikar in ancient Hebrew, it is talking about a staggering, completely overwhelming volume of wealth. A single talent represents tens of kilograms of precious metal. Listen to this. Just one single entry in the scroll describes an unbelievable 900 talents of buried silver. If you tally up all the numbers in the Copper Scroll, the math is just mind-boggling. You're looking at roughly 26 tons of gold and 65 tons of silver. Just let the physical weight of that sink in for a second. Back in 1960, scholars estimated the base value of this hoard at over $1 million US. Obviously, that translates to a vastly higher astronomical fortune in today's money. This is not a pirate's buried chest, guys. This is wealth on a massive national scale. Which naturally leads us to the multi-million-dollar question, right? With so much wealth precisely documented on an indestructible ancient map, why hasn't modern technology, satellite imaging, or, just sheer human greed unearthed this stuff yet? Well, it's because decoding the map is an absolute linguistic nightmare. To even have a chance at finding the treasure, you have to navigate an intense obstacle course of ancient linguistic hurdles.
First off, the scroll is written in this unusual early form of Mishnaic Hebrew, and it's full of strange spelling errors. It almost looks like it was hastily chipped into the metal by an illiterate scribe just copying a master document. Second, it's completely filled with technical, architectural, and topographical vocabulary that you simply won't find anywhere in the Hebrew Bible. And to top it all off, 7 of the locations end with mysterious pairs of Greek letters, like delta iota. To this day, literally no one knows if that's an unsolved numerical code or some kind of lost ancient filing system.
And then, of course, there are the geographical markers. There's this certain cruel, almost comedic irony in having highly specific directions that are utterly useless to a modern explorer. I mean, telling someone to dig next to the old washer's chamber or the pool in Beit Hakerem might have made perfect sense if you were a local resident living in Judea 2,000 years ago. But today, these are places entirely erased by time, buried under millennia of shifting dirt and history.
As if the mystery wasn't deep enough already, the document leaves us with one final brilliant cliffhanger. While the first 63 locations detail physical treasure, the 64th and very last entry doesn't point to gold or silver at all. No, it points to a second, duplicate master key document, claiming that it contains the fuller explanations and specific measurements you actually need to make sense of everything else. And guess what? To this day, that companion scroll has never been found.
So, whose money was this? Scholars are deeply divided on the origins of the Copper Scroll. The leading theories suggest it was a desperate 11th-hour effort to hide the wealth of the doomed Jerusalem temple, maybe right before the Roman destruction in 70 CE, or possibly during the later Bar Kokhba revolt. Others argue it belonged to the Hasidic Essene sect living out at Qumran. And then there's a vocal group of historians who maintain that it might just be an elaborate ancient hoax.
For those who genuinely believe it's real, the temple theories definitely hold the most weight. The sheer magnitude of the metal, along with the specific cultic terminology scattered throughout the text, things like references to tithes, dedicated vessels, and priestly vestments, strongly implies this was a national sacred treasury. The real academic debate centers on whether this was the active treasury hidden frantically before the Romans sacked the temple in 70 CE, or a secondary treasury amassed secretly in the wilderness by rebels decades later, between 132 and 135 CE, in a doomed attempt to rebuild it.
On the flip side, we have to objectively consider the hoax theory. Some incredibly respected scholars, like Theodore H. Gaster, have argued that no single community could possibly possess such unbelievable, almost cartoonish levels of wealth. Under his theory, the Copper Scroll is essentially an ancient piece of folklore, a fantasy. Basically, a mythic list of a legendary hoard, hammered into expensive metal simply to give it this grand illusion of reality. But honestly, despite all the skepticism, the lure of the map has proven totally irresistible. Treasure hunters and archaeologists have spent decades actively searching for these hidden sites. The most intense focus has been on the Hyrcania Valley. John Allegro, the original translator, believed this valley was the scroll's Vale of Achor, and he actually dug there in 1960. Bob Morgan followed secretly in the 1980s. And more recently, Dr. Oren Gutfeld ran systematic, massive excavations there from 1999 to 2007, focusing heavily on a set of mysterious, man-made tunnels cut deep into the rock. And when I say massive excavations, I mean it. The deepest tunnel the team cleared at Hyrcania stretched an incredible 120 meters straight down into the earth. We're not talking about a casual archaeological dig with a little hand trowel and a brush here. This required heavy machinery, massive air blowers just to keep the workers breathing in those suffocating depths, and industrial jackhammers to clear out thousands of years of compacted flash flood debris from the ancient shafts. So, after all that cinematic exploration, all the millions of dollars spent, the grueling physical labor in the scorching, unforgiving Judean desert, and the cracking of ancient linguistic codes, what did the archaeologists finally unearth from the depths of those tunnels? Zero. Absolutely nothing. To date, not a single coin, not a single ingot of silver, and not one golden vessel from the Copper Scroll's inventory has ever been verified as found. It remains history's most infamous, expensive, and baffling unsolved cold case. So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Look at all the evidence we've covered today in this explainer. The highly specific directions, the cultic terminology, the sheer human effort required just to hammer this text into oxidized copper. Are dozens of tons of gold truly still waiting out there in the dark, buried under some unrecognized ancient marker? Or was the Copper Scroll just the ultimate ancient prank, driving treasure hunters mad for 2 millennia? I'll let you decide. Thanks for joining me, and keep